I watched someone else get credit for my work for years. My revenge was calculated and recorded. I, 33M, first noticed it about 3 years ago. It was subtle at first, a comment in a meeting that sounded familiar, a suggestion to management that I'd mentioned a week prior in our department brainstorming session. The kind of thing that makes you pause for a second, but not enough to make a big deal out of it. My coworker and I had joined the company around the same time. We weren't friends exactly, more like amicable colleagues who occasionally grabbed lunch together. Our department was competitive but not cutthroat, or so I thought. The first clear instance happened during a quarterly planning meeting. I'd spent weeks developing a strategy to streamline our client onboarding process. I'd mentioned it to my coworker during lunch, explaining the details because I was genuinely excited about it. 2 days later, in the meeting with upper management, my coworker presented almost the exact same strategy as their own, with just enough modifications to make it seem original. When I caught their eye across the conference table, they just gave me a small smile. I was stunned, but didn't know how to react. Calling them out would have seemed petty without proof. Maybe they genuinely had the same idea? I tried to give them the benefit of the doubt. But it happened again, and again, and again. A suggestion for a new marketing approach I'd mentioned casually by the coffee machine appeared in their presentation a week later. A solution to a recurring client issue I'd discussed with them in confidence became their breakthrough insight during the next team huddle. An optimization for our project management process I'd outlined in an email thread somehow materialized as their proposal to the department head. Each time, they were careful. They'd wait just long enough that the connection wasn't obvious. They'd change just enough details that it wasn't an exact copy. They'd only take ideas they knew were good, ones I put serious thought into. And they'd only do it when they knew there was no paper trail linking the idea back to me. For a long time, I did nothing. I told myself I was being paranoid. That in a collaborative environment, ideas naturally cross-pollinate. That maybe they didn't realize what they were doing. I made excuses because confrontation isn't my strong suit, and I wanted to believe the best of people. But I watched as they received praise, accolades, and eventually a promotion that should have been mine. All while I remained in the same position, increasingly frustrated and demoralized. The breaking point came 6 months ago. I developed an innovative approach to one of our biggest clients' problems, a solution that would save them millions and cement our relationship with them for years. It was complex, technical, and I'd spent countless evenings and weekends perfecting it. I'd mentioned it to absolutely no one at work, except, in a moment of weakness, to my coworker. We'd gone for drinks after a particularly stressful week, and in my slightly tipsy state, I'd excitedly explained the whole thing. They'd asked insightful questions, seemed genuinely impressed, and I'd left feeling good about sharing. 3 weeks later, they presented my solution, virtually unchanged, to the client and our CEO. The client was thrilled. The CEO was impressed. My coworker was lauded as a visionary. Something in me broke that day. I sat in that meeting room, watching them accept praise for my work, and realized this would never stop unless I did something. I'd been naive to think they would change, or that karma would somehow intervene. This was my career, my livelihood, my professional reputation. I needed to take action. That's when I developed my plan. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted recognition for my work and for the pattern to stop. I decided to be strategic. First, I started documenting everything. I kept meticulous notes of my ideas, dated and time-stamped. I began emailing myself outlines and concepts so there would be a digital trail. For particularly important insights, I'd send a just brainstorming here email to my supervisor, not pushing the ideas formally, but establishing that I'd had them. Second, I became careful about what I shared with my coworker. I didn't completely freeze them out. That would have been suspicious. Instead, I shared only non-consequential thoughts or intentionally flawed ideas to see if they would take the bait. They didn't disappoint. Twice they presented my deliberately problematic suggestions as their own, having to backtrack when the flaws were pointed out. But the real game changer was when I started recording our conversations. In our state, one-party consent is legal for recordings, meaning I could record without telling them. I didn't do it constantly, just when I knew I might discuss work ideas. I placed my phone on the table, recording app running discreetly, capturing our discussions. For 6 months, I gathered evidence. Voice recordings of me sharing ideas followed by meeting recordings of them presenting those same ideas as their own. Email trails, timestamp notes, witness statements from 2 trusted colleagues who had begun to notice the pattern themselves. I built a case so airtight it couldn't be dismissed as coincidence or confusion, all while watching them continue to climb the company ladder on the strength of my thinking. The final straw came when rumors of another round of promotions started circulating. My coworker was reportedly being considered for a senior position, one that would put them directly above me in the hierarchy. I couldn't let that happen. It was time. I requested a meeting with our department head, the HR director, and the CEO. I was calm, professional, and prepared. I explained that I had a sensitive matter to discuss regarding intellectual property and attribution within the team. They seemed confused but agreed to hear me out. I presented my evidence methodically. The timestamps, the emails, the meeting minutes, and finally, the recordings. I played audio of me explaining concepts in detail, followed immediately by clips from official meetings where my coworker presented those exact ideas as their own, sometimes using the same phrases and examples I had used. The room was silent when I finished my presentation. The CEO looked shocked. The HR director was frantically taking notes. My department head wouldn't meet my eyes, perhaps realizing how much they had contributed to the situation by never questioning where all these brilliant ideas were suddenly coming from. I don't want to cause problems, I said, though of course that wasn't entirely true. I just want fair attribution for my work, and I want this pattern to stop. I've been dealing with this for years, and it's affected my career progression, my morale, and my reputation within the company. They asked for time to investigate further, though there wasn't much to investigate with the evidence so clear. I agreed and returned to my desk, feeling strangely hollow. This wasn't a victory, just a necessary correction. 2 days later, I was called into a meeting with the same group, plus our company's legal counsel. My coworker was noticeably absent. "We've reviewed your evidence," the CEO said, "and conducted our own investigation, including interviews with other team members. The pattern you've identified is clear and concerning." They outlined the actions they would take. My coworker would be placed on probation. All recent accolades and project attributions would be reviewed and corrected. A formal company policy on idea attribution would be developed. And most importantly, I would receive a promotion and compensation adjustment to reflect what I likely would have earned had my contributions been properly recognized. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt tired. This whole situation had drained me for years, and while the resolution was necessary, it wasn't particularly satisfying. When I returned to my desk, I had an email from my coworker. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity won out. "I know what you did. I don't blame you. I've been seeing a therapist about my insecurity and imposter syndrome issues. I never felt smart enough to be here on my own merits. Taking your ideas made me feel worthy. It was wrong, and I'm sorry. I'll be transferring departments. I hope someday you can forgive me." I closed the email without responding. Maybe someday I would forgive them, but not today. Today, I just wanted to get back to work, my work, with my name on it. The next team meeting was awkward, to say the least. My coworker had been temporarily suspended pending the probation terms being finalized. The department head announced that there had been some confusion about project contributions that was being sorted out, and that going forward, all major ideas and solutions would be properly documented and attributed. Several colleagues came to my desk afterward, some expressing support, others clearly uncomfortable. A few admitted they had noticed the pattern but hadn't known what to do about it. One senior team member pulled me aside and apologized for not speaking up sooner. "We all saw it," she said quietly. "But they were so convincing, and you never said anything, so we thought maybe there was some collaboration happening that we didn't understand." That hurt, the realization that others had seen what was happening but had done nothing. But I understood the bystander effect all too well, having been its victim and participant. The following weeks brought changes. My promotion was announced. Projects were reassigned. My ideas began receiving proper attribution, and I found my voice in meetings again, no longer afraid to speak up for fear of having my thoughts stolen. My coworker returned after 2 weeks, now assigned to a different department where they would have less access to me and my work. They avoided eye contact in the hallways. I heard through the grapevine that they were receiving coaching and had been assigned a mentor to help develop their own creative thinking skills. The company instituted new protocols for brainstorming sessions, with formal documentation of who contributed what ideas. Some found it tedious, but I found it reassuring. 3 months later, things had largely returned to normal, a new normal. I was thriving in my promoted role. My confidence had returned. The team dynamics had shifted, with more people feeling comfortable sharing ideas now that there was a system in place to ensure proper credit. My former coworker and I still occasionally crossed paths. Eventually, the awkwardness faded enough that we could exchange professional pleasantries. I never brought up their email, and they never mentioned my recordings. Some wounds are better left undiscussed once they've begun to heal. Last week, they approached me in the parking lot as I was leaving work. I tensed, unsure what to expect. "I've been doing a lot of work on myself," they said, not quite meeting my eyes. "My therapist says I should make amends where possible. I know we'll never be friends again, but I want you to know I truly am sorry, and I'm grateful you handled it the way you did. You could have just gotten me fired. I considered this. It wasn't about punishing you. It was about standing up for myself." They nodded. "For what it's worth, I really did think your ideas were brilliant. That's why I took them. Next time, try collaboration instead of theft, I said, not unkindly. Most people are willing to share credit if you just ask. They gave a small, sad smile. I'm learning that. Too late for us, but lesson learned. I watched them walk to their car, feeling a complex mix of emotions. Anger still, yes, but also a strange sense of closure. On my drive home, I reflected on the whole experience. The years of frustration, the careful documentation, the confrontation and its aftermath. It had been a painful chapter in my professional life, but also an instructive one. I'd learned to protect my intellectual property. I'd learned to speak up for myself. I'd learned that sometimes you have to fight for the recognition you deserve, even when it's uncomfortable. And most importantly, I'd learned that my ideas had value. Real, significant value worth protecting. As I pulled into my driveway, my phone pinged with an email. It was from the CEO, asking if I'd lead a workshop on innovation and idea development for the company's upcoming retreat. The irony wasn't lost on me. I typed back a simple response. I'd be happy to share my ideas. And for the first time in years, I was completely confident they would remain mine. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with friends or family who might enjoy it too. Your support means a lot. And if you have any thoughts, questions, or story ideas, drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next story.